All right, Majority Leader Katherine Gilmore Richardson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
First thing I'd like to get into, last week in council, you put up some legislation around nuisance businesses. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Well, I introduced two bills in council last week around these nuisance businesses. But this is not the first set of bills that I've introduced to address or combat the issues that we're finding across communities around the city with businesses that are setting up without proper licensing, permitting, and zoning. I'm selling nothing but drug paraphernalia, a lot of materials that are marketed directly to our young people, locations that are close to schools and residential communities. And so I would say this is the third iteration of legislation I've introduced squarely around stores and businesses that sell, and I'll say illegally sell drug paraphernalia because most of them lack the proper licensing and they won't go through zoning to get the community approval to sell these products. But the first bill I introduced last week is a result of the work that we've continued to do on this issue, which is around ensuring that business owners that change their LLC names or legal ownership of businesses that have come into enforcement action from the city, they try to change their LLC or business name to avoid the enforcement action of the city. This legislation will make it easier for us to connect those violations with the new business so that we are able to adequately enforce against these business owners. We typically, when you initially receive violations for either nuisance business activity or for selling drug paraphernalia without the proper licensing or permits, they go through a nuisance business abatement process, okay? And some of these companies, in order to avoid that, they will change their LLC and just continue to operate. And so then we have to start from square one in order to, again, do the enforcement action. And it's just like a revolving door that we're not able to catch up with. And so the first bill aims to combat that issue squarely. But the second bill, we worked with the police department and our partners in the administration since the last resolution hearing we had on this issue in the spring. We noticed that we needed to clean up the code in order for PPD to adequately enforce some of the additional violations for stop work and cease operation orders. Some of the language did not allow for that because some of the language inadequately referred to parts of the criminal code that are more state enforcement versus city. And so we're just going to clean up the code to make it easier for us to issue those fines and violations for stop work and cease operations orders. So it really goes to the continued work we've been doing on this issue, recognizing the ongoing challenges and how people continue to try to skirt the law to continue to operate. And we're going to address another portion of that process. And that's what we're doing with these two bills.
And you know, it's interesting because in that hearing that happened last spring, they were asked directly, you know, like, how come you can't go to a nuisance business and shut it down like the health department can a restaurant? And the answer is, well, it's a different process, you know, and there's a legislative remedy for that maybe. And that's what this is.
Right. Right. And so really, we heard a lot in that hearing, and it was a lot of information to digest in the spring about all the different challenges that we face as a city from an operational and administrative perspective for, you know, as an example for health department, then for licenses and inspection, then for the Philadelphia Police Department, and then for the times that we have to coordinate with the state and federal agencies on a specific, you know, case. So from that hearing, we parsed down a number of bills that we need to introduce to continue to address this issue so that we can have enforcement. We know that these businesses have been popping up all across the city of Philadelphia. And I will tell you, this is an issue I've been working on since 2020 when I first became a member of council. In 2021, we had nuisance business tours in districts across the city with my district council colleagues. We brought the administration along with commissioners and deputies from every single department. And in each area, we found stores that were illegally selling drug paraphernalia, some illegally operating without any of the licensing or permitting necessary to even open a store, let alone the zoning necessary and community approval necessary to sell drug paraphernalia. I did legislation in 2021 to change the definition of drug paraphernalia in the city code. It was the first update of the definition of drug paraphernalia since the 1970s. And so that allowed us to, again, enforce and respond differently to the selling of these items. And now we're dealing with items that are completely unregulated in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this kratom and this Delta 8. We saw in a recent news article that a public health organization tested these products, and many of them had levels of THC that was much higher than indicated on the product packaging, that it was a lot of unknown ingredients in general. And so the challenge here for us is that we have to not only crack down on these practices, but we have to let them know resoundingly that we are not going to stand for this in the city of Philadelphia.
And you know, I feel like every time we turn around, there's a new drug or a new name for a drug that's being bandied about. It's hard to keep up. I had to Google what you were talking about because I had heard of it, you know. And luckily the FDA had information on it, but it's, you know, it feels like we're always like half a step behind on these things, you know, and there's really no way to get ahead of it. How many, you know, as a council member at large, how many complaints have you received about these nuisance businesses?
Well, we receive a ton of complaints about these nuisance businesses from across the city of Philadelphia. More recently, we've gotten complaints within the last week or two from North Philadelphia, from Fairmount, from Center City, and from Winfield. I was even out with Councilmember Curtis Jones Jr. on a corridor in Winfield where we've received a number of complaints about an area that we've toured previously. We are receiving complaints from the Northeast, West Philly, Northwest. It's all over the city. I mean, these places are pervasive. They're popping up everywhere. You know, what we're hearing is that they may be coming from, you know, another, you know, city and descending upon Philadelphia. We don't know, you know, if there's any truth to that. But what we do know is that we have to get a handle on these businesses because they are marketing and selling products that we know nothing about. We don't know the ingredients of these, you know, kratom and Delta 8 products and all the other products that they're selling. And we don't know the impacts that they would have on the public health of our constituents, but also their safety. And what we found is around these locations, they attract, you know, a lot of you know, criminal activity and a lot of crime happens in and around these locations. And so we just want to get a handle on it.
As an at-large member, and this is a question we've gotten a couple times actually over the summer, what are some of the different constituent requests that you do receive? Because, you know, your office is a little different than a district council member, where you're looking at the whole city. What is that difference like, and what kind of requests do you get?
Sure. So you mean overall constituent complaints or
Yes.
just related to this topic? I mean, we receive a number of constituent complaints just from all across the city. I mean, typically, folks know to call their district council member, but not everybody knows, you know, to call, you know, their district member or even who their district member is. And so if someone calls our office to be serviced, we are more than happy to address whatever complaints we receive. You know, we get a lot. You know, this week I saw faded street sign replacement request, issues, you know, at a local business with like overgrown weeds and bushes. I'm just thinking of some of the cases we got this week, actually. Assistance with a mother who is at the onset of a child custody battle, as an example, helping folks with utilities, particularly in the wintertime. We get a lot of those calls, or leading up to the winter, I should say, we get a lot of those calls. Raccoons. I used to be known as the raccoon lady. We have our raccoon information sheet. You know, how to care for, you know, your trash area at your home, what to do, you know, if you have a you know, raccoon setting up in or around your property. So we get a number of constituent requests. A lot of them, I would say in the last week or two also has been challenges around, you know, some of the college students that have moved in for this semester, having late night parties. I was out on one block until midnight a couple weeks ago, working with the police department to get the party shut down. But we get a number of requests from all over the city, and we work very closely with our district council members and my colleagues to ensure that we are adequately addressing those concerns.
What are some of the key things that you're keeping your eye on this fall in council?
Sure. So some of the key things that I'll be looking at, obviously, is this issue around drug paraphernalia and nuisance businesses across our city. We've gotten so many complaints from constituents all over the city that that's definitely something that we'll be focused on. Also, ensuring that we are working to address some of the long-term challenges around illegal tobacco sales. We met with a lot of business owners. I was with Councilmember Lozada as an example, and met with some business owners who had concerns around the sale of illegal tobacco and tobacco from other states, medallions from other areas. So just focusing on improving quality of life across the city of Philadelphia, ensuring that we are also I'm focusing on my piece of housing. I've focused on tangle titles for a long time, and this pervasive issue of deed fraud. So ensuring that victims of deed fraud can receive refunds for the money that was extended on the properties that were stolen from them. So I'll be working on that as well. And moreover, I'll continue to work with my colleagues in council on their legislation and ensuring that we can be as helpful as possible to each and every one of our members so that we can deliver for the people of Philadelphia. So we have a lot of work to do. It's never a dull moment in council. My kids know I'm working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't get a break, but it is truly an honor and a privilege to do this work.
All right, I'd like to bring in Denise Clay Murray here on Philadelphia Hall Monitor.
Thank you for joining us, council member. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Denise.
Now, one of the topics that you took on a lot in the last session of council was the Department of Homeless Services, and specifically how it wasn't serving homeless people. Can you give us a little bit of an update on that?
Sure, sure. Well, we've continued to work with the Office of Homeless Services, even in the last budget cycle, reviewing all the information and materials that have been presented. We know that homelessness continues to rise in the city of Philadelphia. And while our poverty level has shifted a tad, I'm sure everyone has seen the information regarding Philadelphia not being the largest poorest city any longer. We know that homelessness is on the rise. And so what we've committed to do and what we have been doing is working not only with OHS, but with the leaders of the Health and Human Service portfolio in the city to ensure that as we receive complaints about the homeless service system, that we are dealing with them and working on them in real time. So in fact, I got a case over the weekend, family of 6, on Sunday, and sent that over to the Office of Homeless Services, and they're working very closely with the family. In addition to that, we had the legislation go into effect wherein all departments have to do an RFP for contracts for city service. And so that started this fiscal year. As far as we know and have met with the administration, everything is going well with that process. We continue to receive, information about, the RFPs that are being released, particularly at DHS, which is one of the shining example departments. And so it is going very well. We are committed to working together to ensure that we're never in the space and place that we were in, with ensuring that folks and all the contractors that do business with the city are being paid on time, and that also they're providing good quality services to our constituents. So as of now, things are going very well.
Now, because homelessness is going up, have you heard anything about like possibly increasing the number of shelters, affordable housing? I guess how is this problem being looked at from that perspective?
And so I think one thing now that things are being sort of straightened out with all the challenges that we did face previously, we want to know how we adequately resource the Office of Homeless Services to ensure that they have the resources necessary to meet the needs of all of our constituents. And there was a new shelter that was opened as a result of these efforts for families in the Northwest. And so that location just opened within the last 2 years, ensuring that we also, continue to resource the CERC centers as an example, because that's also a stopgap location for young people to help get them to adequate service. So I do think there's obviously, and it always will be a need for additional shelters in the system. That work will be RFP'd and contracted out now, and we'll continue to support those efforts to ensure that we can get as many people, off of the streets, but also from couch surfing. It's so many individuals who, you won't even realize they're homeless because they're couch surfing from, one family or a member or to one friend to another. And so we have to do a better job of seeing those folks as well, and getting them into and onto a path of not only from transitional but to permanent housing support.
Now, the mayor's home program, among the things that it's supposed to address is the percentage, is affordable housing and getting rid of homelessness. Have you heard any new information about what's happening with that? And is council really keeping an eye on this? Because, while my goal in life is to be able to walk into a room and ask people to borrow $800 million on my behalf, the fact is, this is taxpayer money.
Right, and it is taxpayers' money, and we want to ensure that we are doing the very best that we can with expending those dollars. And there are many plans within the home plan to address not only homelessness, but also to address homelessness prevention, to address affordable housing, senior housing, the repair of housing. So I think there's a lot there that we could do to ensure that we are continuing to address the needs of constituents across the city of Philadelphia. We will have further hearings and conversations about the plan later this fall, and I'm looking forward to working with the administration to ensure that we continue to make affordable housing a priority. And I will say that one thing I learned as someone who was someone who suffered with a tangled title, that the most affordable home is the one you already have. So ensuring that folks that want to age in place and also stay in their homes have an opportunity to get their homes repaired. So there's a lot within the plan that we can do to really help low and moderate income Philadelphians, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Okay, now one last question. You are one of the few members of council that has school-age children
Yes.
that attend school in the school district of Philadelphia. The school district is talking about another round of school closings. Have you been keeping an eye on that as someone with kids? And if so, what are you seeing that maybe we haven't? Because while there's been talk about it, there haven't really been any meetings for the public to attend. So
I will say this. I was last on a meeting that was open to the public over the summer. And so there were a number of opportunities for us to engage in the facilities planning process. And maybe that was from a parent perspective, but I received a lot of information and opportunities to be on the meeting. I guess because I'm a parent of two young people in the public schools. And there were a lot of folks from the community on the calls that I was a part of. What I will say is that we know it is true that the school district is not as large as it was, when I was a public school student here in Philadelphia. And there are some hard decisions that I'm sure the district will have to make. But I will say that some things that I brought up in this process that, I've been concerned about is the the process of school selection as it relates to routing our young people to their closest local public school. And so that goes back to the catchment issue. And I think that we have to take a hard look at that process, ensuring that we are routing young people to the right school so we have a real picture and idea and number of the folks that should be attending each and every neighborhood school as a baseline. Also, we know that during this facilities planning process, the school selection process continues to evolve. And so I know that that is a part of the calculus that the district will have to make as well. And I'm appreciative of the fact that the district did update the selection process this year to include sibling preference. Because I think that matters also in changing the enrollment calculus as well. I've participated in at least 3 meetings and have shared the concerns and reservations that I've had about the process, particularly for not only the community where I live, which is where my children started in school, but for communities across the city of Philadelphia. We just have to be cognizant that, one, they're being routed to the right place, that we have enough seats for those locations. For the places where there are overcrowding, that we are able to alleviate that overcrowding and assist with the schools that may be under enrollment. But also for the schools that are doing a good job in increasing their enrollment, that we are not penalizing them and ensuring that they have adequate staff necessary to deal with the increase in their enrollment. So it is a lot here with the district. I do think that Dr. Watlington and his team, that they're doing a good job with transparency around this process. Like I said, I was on at least 3 of the meetings and have shared the concerns that I had individually. I know other members have been on as well. So I know the process is, getting closer, and I look forward to continuing to work with them on that process, because I know and understand the district very intimately. Our chair of education, Councilmember Thomas, has had a ton of meetings with the members of the education committee. They're meeting on a weekly basis, almost with the district. And so I know that we'll have a large part in this process.
Okay, well, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. And I'm going to give you back to Larry McGlenn, my co-host, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
All right. Thank you, Denise. And Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and have a great day.